In today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you my top 10 reading decks, and it's a hashtag and a VR to Nina at Shuffle Tarot. So if you're interested to see which decks I read with the most this year, then please do keep on watching. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me for today's video. I hope that you're well and safe and looking after yourselves and just taking time for you a little bit. I think that's really important at this time of year. So I really like this tag. So Nina from Shuffle Tarot started this tag, top 10 reading decks, and it got me thinking about the decks that I've used most this year and actually how some of these decks aren't included in my top 10, and it's just nice to be able to share them actually, because even though they may not make it to the favourites list, they're the ones I keep going back to, or they have been. And it's a little bit difficult as well when you're bringing decks in, because for instance, a couple of the decks I only brought in a couple of months ago, I've used them so much, but I haven't used them consistently all through the year. So in a couple of those cases, I've maybe included them and then maybe not. So I have some decks in front of me, and I think I probably have more than 10 that I could include. So I'm just gonna go through and actually just go with it sort of intuitively. One thing as well that I noticed is that I didn't really spend too much time with any one deck, because I have quite a lot of decks and I wanted to use them. So I think I didn't spend enough time with any one deck, and that's something that I'd quite like to remedy this year. And I sort of already am, because I'm spending quite a lot of time with the Botanica at the moment by Kevin J. Stanton, and I am loving that deck. So I'll share this with you first, because this has been the newest one in my collection. I got this at the end of November, I believe, beginning of December, and I've used this consistently like every day throughout, and I just think this deck is so stunning. And obviously being a witch and into working with herbs, and something I do quite frequently in my practice, something that really resonates for me, this deck has just been absolutely spectacular. Not only are the illustrations just stunning, the guidebook is beautiful, and there's lots of fantastic information about the plants used within each card, and then a little bit of information about the corresponding meanings of the card as well. But yeah, I think it's absolutely gorgeous. So I've used this quite frequently. I haven't done a walkthrough of this deck, but I have gone into a little bit more depth with this deck on the channel. So if you wanted to click through, I'll leave some videos linked above where I've also included it. It's just such a gorgeous deck, and in the UK it was available on Blackwell's for a good deal of a discount when I purchased it, and I was just thrilled with it because I've had it on my list since the Kickstarter earlier in the year. I just couldn't back it at the time. So I'm so thrilled to get this into my collection, and it's been a winner. So absolutely love this. So next up is a deck that I just kept going back to, and I was trying to move away a little bit from the Lightseers as well as the Rider-Waite-Smith. For myself, I think I probably still went to this the most. This is a Centennial Smith-Waite tarot deck, and I would take out my Universal Tarot pack when I see friends, so I didn't have to like batter up this box. But essentially, this is my main reading deck really for me, but I've refrained from using it for the last few months. You all know what this deck looks like, so I'm not even gonna like, but the coloring's gorgeous, and yeah, I love this deck. I'm definitely a Rider-Waite-Smith girl at heart. This is just my system. This is the first deck well, this isn't the specific deck, but the Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and not the Centennial either. It wasn't available then, but when I was a teenager, the first deck I learnt with was the Rider-Waite Tarot pack, and that's the one I have in a little bag that I take with me, read with for friends. But basically the Rider-Waite-Smith is the one I kind of reach for the most. So I was trying desperately to move away a little bit from that, because I felt like I was so used to the imagery and the Lightseers as well I wanted to move away from. So I was doing my best to do that, and this year I was just pulled into the Tarot of the Mermaids, and I found myself reaching for this every single time. So for myself, for my friends, you can see the box is really battered up already, and I only purchased this year, but I've used this such a lot. Reading for friends, reading for myself. I feel like the wateriness of the deck is just fantastic for love readings and for kind of emotional readings, you know, for self-care and all kinds of things like that. And because it's basically like a Rider-Waite-Smith clone, so it just works so beautifully for so many different situations, and I think it reads really wonderfully. I read for a couple using this deck, and oh my gosh, it was so incredibly powerful. They were both, I think, a little bit surprised at some of the things that came out of the reading as a result. A really fantastic deck, and I think it just reads so beautifully. It's one of those ones I can't even really put my finger on why. I wish I could. Does anyone else work with this deck? Does anyone else have any thoughts about how they work with it? Because I have just it's been one of those ones I'm not really sure why. I just keep going back to it because I just love it. And obviously I do have issues with the fact it's just, there's no diversity at all. It's all just white bodies, so females and males, and there's no LGBTQI plus representation, no diversity in terms of ethnicity, no diversity in terms of age or body size. It's all like airbrushed model type bodies, and I don't like that. So why is it that this deck reads so well? I don't know. Please someone tell me why. But I think what I'm going to be trying to do is, again, put this on the shelf and keep it on the shelf so I don't use it so much, because it is frustrating actually in that way. I do think it's so important to have diversity in my decks, and in decks that are mass market as well. This is a mass market, low scarabeo. I want those decks to be diverse and not just have one person who is of a different ethnicity and one person who's non-binary, or, you know, I want more than that, and this does none of it. So I struggle with why I love this deck, but I just do. So if anyone could shed some light on why this works so well. But I am going to be using the Numinous Tarot a lot more this year than the Lightseers, a lot more than this, because it bothers me. It really, really bothers me. But I can't lie, this has been read with a lot. That one is the first one. That one with the Rider-Waite-Smith sort of in the same grouping, I'd say. Next up is the Murder of Crows by Coretta Roy. I love this deck. Oh my gosh, this deck. I used this such a lot at the end of last year and then coming into this year. It's just so moody and sharp. It really pokes and prods, and I just love it. It really is great for shadow work, but I've used it for just normal readings as well, and I just love it. I love the monochromatic nature of it. It is a little bit scary, I think, in some places, so some people potentially might not like it, but especially for working, connecting to the Morrigan, this deck has been so beautiful and profound, and definitely doesn't pull any punches, and is really, really quite specific and can be a little bit harsh. But I think sometimes you need a deck that is going to do that for you. So this is like one of those tough love decks. But it's actually not as hard as you think. You know, you look at the imagery and you think it might be really, really terrifying to work with, and it's not. It's not like that at all. In fact, I find that the more I work with decks like this, the less they become like that, the more they develop in a very personable way. And it's actually just like the Morrigan. It's not that working with this deck is just so terrifying and scary and harsh all the time. It's not. I mean, I speak to that because there is that element to it, and obviously there is some alarming, not so pleasant images in here, but it's striking and it's beautiful at the same time. And I will say that the more I've worked with decks like this, the less overwhelming and the less intimidating they are, and the more personable they become, the more of a relationship you build with the deck. And just like the Morrigan themselves, like, this is a deck that is not going to baby you. It's not going to pander to you. It's not going to be like, oh, you'll be okay, it's okay. It's going to say, no, get up, get on with it, and you can do this, and you've got this. And I think that's what I need. I really need that sometimes. Like, I need someone to give me that tough love. It's not being cruel to be kind, but it's got that element to it. It's like, that love is not all motherly, it's not all tender, it's not even like a grandma. It's like a harsh headmistress going, no, absolutely not. That is not on. You know what the right thing to do is, and you are going to do it. And I'm here to hold you accountable. And that's the kind of voice. It's stern, but it's still, it's got your back, you know, it's got you. And that is the energy I get from this deck, and I just loved it. And so I worked with this a lot in the first half of the year, and I found it very, very useful for a lot of different types of readings. To be honest with you, probably more challenging kind of readings I definitely use this for. I didn't ever pull this out for like a love reading, and I definitely didn't use this for anybody else, just for myself. So yeah, definitely shadow spreads and things to do with like my mind, getting myself over certain hurdles or challenges and things like that. But yeah, absolutely fantastic deck. Love, love, love it. So this is The Murder of Crows by Coretta Roy. Next up, this deck I used basically throughout the entire year, and it is the Herbcrafters Tarot. I love this deck. I use this with other plant botanical oracles, and I'd use this for study as well as for spellcraft as well as for divination, so it has lots of beautiful uses. So I love the artwork. It is by Joanna Pearl Colbert, and Letitia Guthrie is the author of this deck. And so because I love the art so much in this, I really want a copy of the Guardian Tarot, but those blue borders in the latest mass market are not my cup of tea, but it is still on my list. love this deck because not only does the guidebook sort of go into a little bit about the herb or the spice, it also obviously corresponds to a tarot card, and you can just extract this other layer of meaning. It's a bit like the botanical tarot in that way. Completely different decks, but you can use them in a similar way. Obviously the aesthetic is so different, but they do have that in common. And yeah, I just love the illustrations so much. It's just glorious, absolutely glorious. And this is one of those decks that I got a couple of years ago, and this is just one that I would never ever regret getting. It's just been an absolute favourite for me. And yeah, definitely a top reader as well. I mean, I never pilled this out for someone else, and I've used it more for like daily draws or for use within spell work, so divination for spell work, rather than like a full on spread with a deck like this, because I want to go into the meanings of the plants and I want to go into the meaning of the card as well, and bring those two together and then form my reading for myself from both of those. So I haven't used it for anyone else either, but for me this has been a beautiful reader and really great for using with spellcraft and such. So that is the Herbcrafters Tarot. Next up is the Marielle Tarot, and this is the 2nd edition. This is by Mary Waite. I've talked about this quite a lot on my channel because it has been just such a wild ride with this deck, and definitely a real teacher. It has so many lessons to teach and so much to learn from this deck, and this is probably, I would say, one of my harshest decks. I really think it is a harsh critic. I've used this for daily draws and spreads this year. I used it quite a lot in the first half of the year, I have to say, because I was absolutely enthralled by its beauty and how beautiful and harsh the art was all at once. And definitely, I've said this before, I don't want to use the word triggering because I don't want to overuse that word and I don't think it's appropriate, but definitely puts you in discomfort in some ways, as well as being incredibly beautiful. A blend of systems here, and using the guidebook has been really important, especially when I've been doing spreads and not using oracle cards alongside. So powerful. This is such a powerful deck, and one that I absolutely love having in my collection. It's one of my favourites, and one that I do go to. I've not used this for other people. Again, it's a private deck for me. When I do read for other people, I tend to reach for those decks that are a little bit more universal, like, well, the Rider-Waite Smith, because there's the imagery there that people recognize, but then also things like the Lightseers, because you recognize people in everyday circumstances and you can reference the situation that they're in and what they might be feeling and such, whereas this is, I feel like, a lot more personal, and some of the images are, you know, quite shocking and striking, and I'm not sure that my friends who aren't into tarot would really appreciate or understand or like seeing some of these things, in all honesty. You know, maybe some of my more artistic friends would. But when I do eventually open up my business and start reading for public, because I'm happy to do that now, I'm ready to. I've never set up a business on my own, so for me the whole thing's a little bit overwhelming, and with work and the kids and everything, it's kind of just always taking the back seat. And so this year is the year, I think, because last year was full of other stuff. But yeah, having said that as well, I really just don't want to put pressure on myself because it's so hard at the moment with the children and work and life in general. So, but when I do, I would definitely give this as an option for people. I might include like a number of decks that people could choose from, but then also if people don't choose, probably just I'll use the Rider-Waite Smith, because it's the deck I feel most comfortable reading for, you know, people who don't know tarot. So yeah, that would be probably my choice. So that is the Marielle Tarot. It's been a fantastic reader for me personally, and a real teacher. I would say this is definitely a harsh critic, quite hard to work with sometimes, but not hard in like a, it doesn't feel bad, it's just challenging, and it really does get you. Again, a little bit like the Murder of Crows, right there, and you just like, yeah, I know, okay, I can do this. It's got that Morriganic energy to it, basically. You know, you could connect to the Morrigan, I think, using this, but there's more going on in it, I think, as well. So beautiful, absolutely stunning deck. Fantastic masterpiece. Next up, a deck I've probably used the most this year, not the Yule Oracle, but the Samhain Oracle, because yes, I love this deck. I use this a lot in autumn and around Samhain, and after, until I basically picked up the Yule Oracle, I was using this. And I know the poetry is a little bit obscure sometimes. This does go to the shadows. It goes deep with shadow work and things you need to heal. So this says, frog, may the lily beneath your breasts allow you to drink from its healing waters. Be still, for there is serenity behind the drowning croaks. And I really feel that, like, oh, that relief using a deck like this. My god, like, yeah, it's beautiful, but it's got this gentleness too as well. It's maybe it's the illustrations, but it also has some real punch to it, and the edging and just yeah, the illustration is fantastic. I love it. Illustrated by Giada Rose, and it's Lorraine Anderson and Juliet Diaz, and they have fantastic social media presence and like a powerhouse duo, I think, at this point. So I cannot wait for the Beltane Oracle. This has been a fantastic reader. I love it, and I will continue to love it in 2022. Next up is a deck, I think it's on my Ride or Die. I'm pretty sure I included it in my top 10 decks, but it's the Wildwood Tarot, and I do tend to use this quite a lot in the beginning of the year. I mean, I think it is a deck that works autumn, winter, spring, summer, basically. I use this a lot in 2021. Of course, I love that it's very nature-based, and there's that connection to Celtic mythology and druidry. So that obviously resonates because I work with the Morrigan. I have Irish heritage, so the Celtic pantheon just works for me, and I just feel drawn to it. It resonates with me. I love Celtic decks. And there's something about Will Wellington's artwork and something about the guidebook as well. The guidebook is just amazing. So the guidebook is by Mark Ryan and John Matthews. I do think as well with the changes of some of the names that can throw some people off, but I think it's fairly simple to understand that arrows is blades or swords, air, and that stone is earth, or pentacles, that vessels is cups or water, and that bows is fire or wands, you know. I think that comes out pretty clearly. And yeah, the combination of the naturescapes, I feel like when I use this, I feel like I'm out in the woods, like where I walk around here locally, and it just speaks to my witchy soul, really. And so not only do I find this beautiful, but I do find it to be a really beautiful reader for daily draws as well as spread. So this has been a fantastic reader for me this year, and will continue to be, and it's definitely a ride or die for me. I am really excited about the Greenwood Tarot actually coming out again. I'd love to get my hands on that. Fantastic deck, one of my favourites ever. So can't deny it's a great reader for me. I love it. I know a lot of people actually are more Druidcraft, and I do love the Druidcraft too, but obviously it's Will Wellington for both. There's something about this deck though, and I love Philip Cargon, but yeah, there's just something about this deck that is just for me. It just definitely resonates. And I had the Druidcraft first, and at first I thought that the Druidcraft was more me, and then I got this and I was like, oh my god, no, I was so wrong. It's this, it's this. God, love it so much. Next up is a deck that I worked with quite a lot for some more love readings and some like passionate readings. You'll see what I mean. There is some adult content and nudity, so if you are not comfortable with that, then just skip. I'll leave a timestamp. But this is the Manara Tarot, and I went through a phase of like wanting to get really like erotic kind of decks. And so I got the Tarot of Sexual Magic, which I also absolutely loved using, but there was something about this deck. I just pulled it out a lot. The Tarot of Sexual Magic, I think, was made as a tarot deck, whereas this uses the art of Milo Manara, and it's called the Erotic Tarot. Again, it's a low Scarabeo, and of course they all look like cartoon characters, so everyone's very beautiful, but there's a lot of very raunchy scenes, so I'm just about to show you, so if you wanna, you can skip now. So yeah, it speaks less to the tarot as we know it, and you get a whole different interpretation. I think that a lot of times the meanings still work, but it's not exactly how you think. You know, it's when you start to think outside of the box, and when you start to like get real nuance into the reading. And I think a lot of people would probably not like working with this because it seems to deviate so much. There's not really much coherence between the images and the Rider-Waite-Smith meanings, but I can still use it, and I can still see the meanings that I know from the Rider-Waite-Smith in this, and I can use this in an intuitive way, and it is very much like that it does speak in that way. And so when I was working on some more sexual related readings, this kind of stood out as one that I very much enjoyed and used a lot. You know, again, it's a little bit like the Mermaid Tarot in that it's a little bit surprising and a little bit embarrassing. I did edge this because I wanted it all black, because it's got these black borders and I wanted it all black, so I edged it all black. It's kind of a little bit of a, I love it though. Look, very sensual and passionate and just raunchy and naughty, and this has been an area of my life that I've had a lot of conflict with. You know, obviously there's healing that needs to be done because of, you know, being hurt in the past, but then also things around being involved with a Christian church and like guilt and all of this shame. So I've done a lot of work to work through some of those blocks that I've had and shadows that I've had as a result of some of my experiences as a young person. So, you know, this has supported that. And I will say, if you're interested to understand a little bit more about what I'm talking about there, I'm not going to go into it here, but in my VR2 Bronia K, I did speak about my journey with tarot, and taking it back to tarot was the hashtag. And so I will link that above in the cards if you are interested to learn a little bit more about my experiences and how coming to tarot and discovering witchcraft when I was 11, and then coming to tarot, learning tarot when I was 17, like how those points in my life really impacted me and helped me to heal, even if it wasn't just right then, because I did have some time away from both. But this has been part of my healing, you know. So yeah, it's surprising in a way, but actually not so surprising when you think about some of the work I've been doing for myself. So yeah, this has been a powerful deck, and whilst I think a lot of people wouldn't like it, and whilst there's no diversity, and again, that really bothers me, there's got to be a market for that, please. Can we just create an erotic tarot that has some diversity in it? That would be great. I think we need that. But I find that this has worked really, really well for me, and it's helped with those readings for me. So yeah, been a good reader. Next up is a deck that did surprise me as well. I read with this a lot and I didn't expect to. I kind of bought it because I fell in love with the art. I'd seen it on Dawn Michelle's channel at Boho Tarot. Then I saw Danny Mystic sharing it, and it was Danny who made me do it, really. I had to have it. So this is the Black Lily Tarot, and this was from Gamecrafter, I believe. And you get a little book with it. And these images though, oh my gosh, they're so raw and they just speak so loudly. I use this for a number of different readings from summer. I think I picked this up in the summer, so from summer onwards. And this deck did have me in tears at some points, working through trauma and healing and, you know, personal relationships and pain and worries and fear and challenges. And oh my gosh, this deck, wow, it's such a incredible deck. And I love the size of it as well. It's very small, it's really, really easy to shuffle, but it's so beautiful. It's very personal. You get right up close to the characters and you just feel all of this emotion, and it's just incredibly beautiful. And it reminds me a bit actually of a deck I don't have that I want, which is the Yonasa Yaus Tarot. I still want that deck, still on my list, still on my list. But this fulfilling the itch for now, I think. But yeah, this is just so gorgeous, and it's been an incredible reader for me. I would say there is a little bit more diversity in this deck, but not much. Again, it's something we really do need to work on. Again, there's not really enough diversity in this deck. It's mostly white presenting people from the looks of it. There are some images though that I do think are more diverse. It feels more diverse in a way, and it definitely very raw and visceral. That's the word I always use. Like really, really powerful. So I do really appreciate this deck, and this is a powerful, powerful deck. This is no average deck. This is a powerful, powerful, powerful deck. Like, I don't know how many times I can say that. It's stunning. I love it. And these are the backs. I don't think I showed you. They're stunning. So this has been a top reader for me this year. Fantastic, fantastic deck. Love it. Cannot wait to keep working with it. And in all honesty, there are still loads of decks on my list. I haven't exactly decided that I'm going to be in a depthier this year, but I am being really discerning about what decks to bring in. But I'm feeling like there's so many decks I love and that I have that I want to work with. And I do feel like the more decks you accumulate, the less you can work with the ones that you have and love. So that is really putting me off buying certain decks, to be honest with you, because I'm like, well, do I love that more than all the decks I've already got? I'm not so sure. So otherwise maybe I'd have that deck first. So it's really interesting food for thought, and I think it's very interesting that several of these decks weren't in my favorites. You know, it's really, really interesting introspective kind of exercise to do, to take yourself out of just doing your reading on automatic pilot without thinking about it. This just takes you back to, hang on, this is a deck I haven't worked with, let's pull this out. Or feeling into the moment, you know, settling and dropping down into your center and feeling into your energy and like, okay, what is it that I need right now? What is it I need out of my deck? What is it that I really need to work with right now? And then going with that. And you know, that's something I want to be doing with a little bit more, and just switching up the way I've been working. But I don't know if it's going to be irrelevant by the time I end up getting to make it or not, so I may not do a video, but I am quite tempted to do a video about tarot and witchcraft goals for 2022. I'm filming this in 2022, so we're already there. But you know, what do I want to achieve? What are my goals? Because I wanted them to be achievable. I didn't want to set all these goals, but my list is not it's not short, and I've separated it out into different categories and everything. And you know, I've not said, okay, you can't spend this on that, but I have a strict budget really in general, so you know, that's going to be reflected in my deck buying and accumulation of books and tools and such for witchcraft, for my craft. So we'll see how that goes, but there are a few decks that are at the top of my list that I would like to get, but I do think that there are some decks I'd really like to go deeper with and discover more about, and so I'm excited to do that. And I don't want lots of decks to be noisy, I want to be able to focus in a little bit. So yeah, I think depth year is something I'm mulling over. I will talk about it maybe in another video, and if I don't end up talking about it, then I think it's probably gone past the point of relevancy, or I think people won't want to watch it. But let me know if you do want to watch it, let me know, I'd love to hear. Let me know if you have any questions as well that you'd like me to answer. But thank you so much for joining me for this video. I hope that you've enjoyed seeing my top 10 reading decks. This was very intuitive because I just got out a load of decks that I knew I'd worked with quite a lot, and I was like, right, okay, now really what's been the best for me? So I hope that that shows. I hope it's been of interest and inspired you maybe to do the same, even if you don't do a VR, maybe do it on Instagram if you're not on YouTube. But I'd love to see your VR if I haven't seen it. I've seen quite a few, but I don't think I've seen close to all of them. So let me know if you've seen it, and I will go over and watch it if I haven't seen it already. Thank you to Nina at Shuffle Tarot for the tag and the idea, and it's been really, really fun. Thank you so much for joining me and watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you did, click the like button and give it a thumbs up, and share it with anyone who you think would enjoy it as well. I have an Instagram page and I have a TikTok, so I will link them in the description box below, and I will put my handles on screen as well, so that you could go over and follow me and see what I'm doing over there, sharing more frequently on Instagram. I also share my personal tarot spreads for the new and full moons, and they are tailored to the specific aspects at the time of the lunation. So that's really, really interesting. It's a project that I've been doing now for quite a few months, and it's been really enriching for me. And so I'm sharing my spreads on my Instagram channel. If you wanted to go over there, follow me, and then you can take those spreads into your practice and use them as well for yourself. Also, I have a buy me a coffee page if you would like to go over and donate and show your appreciation for the videos I create here. And if you've been watching and enjoying my content here and you're not yet subscribed, please do subscribe, because it really does help to support the channel. So click the little subscribe button, and while you're subscribing, don't forget to hit that bell notification, because that's how YouTube is going to let you know when I create and upload videos just like this. And with all that said, thank you again so much for joining me. This has been so fun. I hope you take care of yourselves, stay well and safe, and have an amazing 2022. Mwah. Bye.